What are the key injury updates you need to know for the Sunday and Monday games of Week 6? What are the DFS plays you want to look at in FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, and PrizePicks picks? Time to break it down right here and right now. And we react to Commanders Bears, all on the Friday edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. Check out the site. You have your stardom sit-em there by me, the rankings for the week, sleepers and busts that you can check out, as well as pick straight up and against the spread also. So everything from a fantasy and gambling perspective, we got you covered there with the team at sportingnews.com. Here on Locked On Fantasy Football, we like to end the week looking at our injury report, and we will have the official designations come out there on Friday. Who's good to go, who's questionable, who's doubtful, who's out. Here we'll find that all out, but we do have a good indication based on the early practice reports on Wednesday and Thursday, so we'll give that to you here. We'll also look at our DFS report for the week. We'll identify some targets we want to look at in our different formats here. We have FanDuel cash games. We got DraftKings tournaments and PrizePicks, our official sponsor here of Locked On Fantasy Football with DFS. We're going to look at the PrizePicks picks of the week. We're going to identify 5 things that we're looking at as good targets there. We'll do all that here on today's show. First, I got to tell you, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We are free and available on all platforms. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. All right, let's dive right into the injury report here and see what's going on with who's playing, who's not this week. Let's start our quarterback, as we always do here on a Friday. We're looking at Baker Mayfield missing the game. He's got the ankle injury. There's a timeline in which looks like Sam Darnold might be healthier than Baker Mayfield, so we'll see if that has created quarterback controversy on top of Mayfield's poor play to start the season here. But P.J. Walker, not bad. I mean, he's actually won his first 2 starts for Carolina. It's interesting there. Goes to the Rams this week. I think there could be some upside here with Walker because he runs. I'm not going to play him individually, but I feel a little bit better about DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey actually this week with him in there, given Mayfield was struggling. Dak Prescott is going to have to miss another game here. He's just doing some light work in practice, so he's not going to be out there against the Eagles, but they do play the Lions next. That could be a very nice return matchup here for Dakota. So looking for that special play there for him next week. Cooper Rush is going to be playing against the Eagles. You cannot trust him against that defense on the road at night. Russell Wilson playing through a right shoulder injury. He's going to be out there on Monday night. He's not one of my recommended plays this week against that Chargers pass defense, weaker against the run. Los Angeles is, but you look at Wilson again, at least he's going to be out there facilitating the receivers. Aaron Rodgers, they were a little bit concerned with his right thumb injury, but he got a full practice in on Thursday. He's good to go against the Jets. Justin Herbert still practicing in full with that ribs injury he sustained a few weeks ago in that Chiefs game in week 2. He's still good to go here in a tougher matchup this week against the Broncos, although they're a little bit depleted in their pass rush and secondary. Tua Tagovailoa is not going to play with his concussion ankle injury. He's getting limited practice. Teddy Bridgewater also not going to play. He's got a concussion and a pectoral injury. So Skylar Thompson is going to make his starting debut here. He did play extensively in a bad game against the Jets, so downgrade everything around him in that Dolphins offense. Now, Jameis Winston has had 2 limited practices, but the indications are that Andy Dalton is going to start. We know that Taysom Hill is probably going to play a lot regardless. So Andy Dalton revenge game against the Bengals, but interesting how that worked where Winston was not available for that game against Dalton's former team. We'll see if Winston can go, but I don't think they're going to rush him back this week, especially if they won without him and they're feeling it in their offense. Bailey Zappi is set to start again for the Patriots in Cleveland here. He looked pretty decent spreading the ball around, leaning on the running game there. So Mac Jones' ankle, I think he's getting closer, but Bill Belichick has suggested it's not necessarily going to be Jones's job when Zappy and Jones are healthy. So something to watch there for sure as we go forward. But again, we're not looking at the Patriots quarterback to start. We're looking at the one that's going to help us with Ramondre Stevenson, Jacoby Myers, and their skill players. At the New York Giants situation, Tyrod Taylor will return, but Daniel Jones has played well enough. They keep winning games here, so the Giants are good here in the matchup against the Ravens. It's a revenge game for Tyrod Taylor. Started his career behind Joe Flacco with the Ravens, but he'll be healthy out there for that game this week. Now, we have bigger concerns here at running back and wide receiver in this week's games. Start with James Conner and Darrell Williams. Ribs injury for Connor. Darrell Williams has also missed practice 2 in a row with the knee injury. So Eno Benjamin looks like he'll get a significant role. Keontae Ingram is their number 2 back. They're looking at other backs here to fill in for this week. But Connor Williams and Jonathan Ward are all hurt. So this is really good for Eno Benjamin here this week. Look at Justice Hill, may return from his hamstring injury for the Ravens, but this backfield, hopefully a little bit more out of J.K. Dobbins this week against the Giants. Samaje Perine should be fine with an abdomen injury, but maybe a few extra touches here for Joe Mixon against the Saints. The Broncos, all 3 running backs are hurt, and we know that doesn't include Javonte Williams, who's down for the season with knee injury. Melvin Gordon, neck and ribs issue, he should play. Mike Boone, foot injury, should play for that. But Davis Murray is actually their healthiest back. His wrist injury, practicing in full. So we'll see how this backfield shakes out a little bit in that great matchup against the Chargers. Revenge game for Melvin Gordon this week against his former team in the AFC West. Jonathan Taylor, good sign. He got the limited practice in on Thursday, upgraded there. So I think he's going to be good to go here. A little bit hampered, but I think let's watch the Friday practice thing. But I think he's definitely going to play this week. Nyheim Hines, limited practices, he needs to be cleared to play here. So he might not be out there behind him. So you might be seeing a little bit more of Deion Jackson and Philip Lindsay this week. Cam Akers missed practice with a personal issue, but he should be out there. I actually like him quite a bit this week against the Panthers, as they're going to need to lean on the run. The Panthers' run defense is shaky at best. Raheem Mostert is going to play through that knee injury. Like him a lot after his big 100-yard game with a touchdown against the Jets. Gets a good matchup against the Vikings, who are not very secure against the run here this season. So good spot there for Mostert. Alexander Madison should play in that same game with a shoulder injury. Damian Harris is not going to play for the Patriots against the Browns. So Ramondre Stevenson smashed flat. We'll see who plays a little bit behind him. There may be a little extra Ty Montgomery in the passing game this week. Saquon Barkley going to play through that shoulder injury suffered in London against the Packers. He'll be fine for this Ravens game. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be there for the Eagles with a rib injury for the Cowboys game. Jeff Wilson had a bit of a shoulder issue, but he's fully good to go for the Falcons game. Tyrion Davis-Price about to return here to strengthen the depth of the backfield with Tevin Coleman, with both Elijah Mitchell out here at this point. Rashad Penny, he's not on IR, which is interesting, but he's got the ankle issue. He's not going to play. Kenneth Walker take over here in Seattle against the Cardinals. More on Walker here later in the show. At wide receiver, this is the concern. Rashad Bateman, foot injury, doesn't look good here for him for a second straight week. It's a midfoot sprain. A little bit scary here for the Ravens, but no Bateman against the Giants. Most likely, Isaiah McKenzie will return with a concussion. Jake Kumerow still down here probably for the Bills. You have DJ Moore batting through a shoulder injury, but I do like the upside with PJ Walker. He's had one big game with Walker a few years ago, so like it quite a bit with DJ Moore. Tee Higgins probably not going to play here, so that's the biggest concern as well with Bateman there with the ankle injury. Didn't play last week at all after he got in the game for a little bit, aggravated something, so don't trust in Higgins this week to stay healthy. Christian Watson probably going to miss a game with a hamstring injury against the Jets, so that's probably bumps up the targets a little bit for Al Lazard and Romeo Doubs and Randall Cobb this week. Zay Jones has an ankle injury still bothering him with the Jaguars, but should see a little bit more run against the Colts. All 3 major Chiefs receivers are banged up here. Juju Smith-Schuster with a hamstring quad, Mecole Hardman with a heel, Sky Moore with an ankle injury. So all 3 should be out there. Hard to trust any Chiefs receiver that can be approached. Now, Keenan Allen, a little bit better prognosis on him. Did some practice work on the side there. They do have until Saturday to get him ready with the designation. So there's a good chance Keenan Allen returns against the Broncos. They need him, especially Ronald Darby down and Patrick Surtain too on the other side for Mike Williams. That would be a big second target to have in the offense for Herbert. Cooper Kupp scared some people with the foot injury that caused him to miss practice on Wednesday, but he's fully good to go here. There was a limited practice on Thursday. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, quad and foot for Hill, growing for Waddle. They're full. They're good to go for the Dolphins against the Vikings this week. You look at Jalen Naylor, he'll be out there. He scored a touchdown last week for the Vikings, the hamstring. Jacoby Myers is going to keep playing through that knee injury. Played really well with that last week, and a good match against the Browns this week. Nelson Aguilar is banged up with a hamstring. He may miss the game. Chris Olave trending in the right direction. Still needs to be cleared with a concussion. It didn't look good for him after the game and early in the week, but there's a chance he plays there, which is key because Michael Thomas with a foot injury, 2 missed practices, ready to miss another game. Jarvis Landry, who was a surprise scratch last week in the ankle injury, looks like he'll miss this week as well. And Deontay Hardy could also be out there. So Chris Olave might see a dominant number of targets there playing off Traquan Smith and Marquez Callaway there this week. Now, let's go to the Giants. You can't trust anybody, but Kenny Golladay hurting, and so is Kadarius Toney. They haven't practiced for 2 days. So we could see Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie, but I think they might wait another week. The knee injury, Deontay Johnson, good to go with the hip injury for the Steelers. You have Marquise Goodwin, the slot receiver for the Seahawks. He'll be out there for Geno Smith with a knee and back injury. Looking at Marquise Goodwin, and then we're looking at Chris Godwin for the Buccaneers, hip and knee injury. He's good to go for the Steelers game. Good matchup in the slot for him. Russell Gage should play with an ankle injury. Julio Jones probably going to miss the game with a knee injury. Rashad Perriman's going to be there, and Jalen Darden will be there as well for the Buccaneers this week. Now let's go to tight end. Excuse me. Yes, we are sneezing, and we're allergic to Kyle Pitts so far this season, but he's going to be out there with a hamstring injury. He's got to get going, right? The 49ers matchup, however, is pretty tough with Talanoa Hufanga and Fred Warner, so don't love the matchup this week for Pitts, but you might have to play him just based on volume. Foot and hamstring issue for Dawson Knox, 2 limited practices. He is expected to return against the Chiefs, and good matchup there if usable. I don't love Hayden Hurst, but he's going to be available for the Bengals with a growing injury this week. So if you need to have Hayden Hurst playing, but the Saints are pretty good against the tight end. Dalton Schultz, 2 limited practice with the knee injury. They could kind of limit him for sure, so you can't play Dalton Schultz right now with the Cooper Rush situation. Eric Saubert is number 1 on the tight end depth chart for the Broncos. He's going to probably play through a thigh injury. Travis Kelce popped up with a hip and back injury, but 2 full practices. He's good to go. Tyler Higbee did miss practice there on Wednesday with an ankle, but he's fully expected to play against the Panthers this week and keep it up. Durham Smythe there, the hamstring, he should play there for the Dolphins. Jonnu Smith has had 2 limited practice. Good chance maybe to return against the Browns. We'll see that versus Hunter Henry. Taysom Hill, the ribs injury, still playing through that, full practices. Pat Freiermuth trending in the right direction with the concussion, got a limited practice. Zach Gentry is available. He did miss practice on Wednesday, but a knee injury is good to go here, Gentry. So watch Freiermuth looking cleared in that game. And Cameron Brate, another veteran tight end coming off a concussion. He should return, but don't be surprised if Cade Otton sees a little bit more run there for Tampa, the rookie out of Washington. Now let's look at the kickers. We do have to examine that. Matt Prater, if you're counting on him, it's going to be Matt Amendola, probably against the Cardinals. Harrison Butker, if you're looking for him, he should be back against the Bills. Dustin Hopkins, also a good chance to return there for the Chargers on the Monday night game. You have Jake Elliott, who hasn't put up a lot of fantasy points this year, mainly because you had the red zone prowess there, but Cameron Dicker was the special teams player of the week, his fill-in. So we'll watch that. Robbie Gould, good as gold here for the 49ers to keep kicking in the friendly confines indoors in Atlanta this week. Now, other injuries that we want to keep tracking here, there's a lot of offensive line banged up here, but the Browns, if they still have limited Myles Garrett here, Jadeveon Clowney, that's going to be great for Ramondre Stevenson. That wilting running game that we see. Aaron Donald's missed a couple practices, but he should be good to go. Falcons might get a break here with Nick Bosa, Samson Ekuban, Armstead, and Javon Kinlaw all injured here, but I still can't trust Marcus Mariota in that offense, really, in that tough matchup overall against the good 49ers. Defense, Micah Parsons should play through his growing injury there on Sunday night against the Eagles. Shaquille Leonard probably going to miss another game. Good news for those Jaguars running backs this week. At the secondary, Jordan Poyer could miss another game. That might be really good for Travis Kelce there. Micah Hyde already out there. J.C. Horn could be missing a game for the Panthers. That's great news here for Cooper Kupp. Denzel Ward with a concussion. If he doesn't play, then that's great for Jacoby Myers here this week. Rashad Fenton for the Chiefs might be out, so getting thin there. Xavier Howard could return for the Dolphins here this week with his multiple growing injuries here, but I don't get scared with him with Justin Jefferson on the other side. So those are the main ones to watch out for. One more I'll mention is Marshawn Lattimore 2 missed practice and abdomen injury. This could be a nice, very nice rebound spot for one Jamar Chase this week. So those are your key injuries there that you're looking at and tracking that are going to affect games in fantasy football this weekend, from offensive skill to a few defensive injuries of note. And we will get into now DFS reports. We'll look at our FanDuel cash games and DraftKings recommendations for tournaments there in our next segment. I told you to stop that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And look, we're talking about how to put together winning teams in fantasy football. We want to attach ourselves to winning teams around the NFL. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's your winning team. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can't beat that. There to assemble your winning team and expand to it. All you will have to do here is go to LinkedIn and post your job. So good stuff there that you're going to get results there every time with the hires that you like to make. You add your job to the purple hiring frame on your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. So that is great to get the process rolling and expedited. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free, absolutely free, at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, we will continue Locked On Fantasy Football here in a moment, looking at our DFS report for FanDuel and DraftKings here. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Now, make sure to check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday at Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday at Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and, of course, wherever you get your podcasts, much like Locked On Fantasy Football. All right, let's go to our DFS report. And these are my picks here. We'll go to FanDuel cash games and DraftKings tournaments. A little bit different feel there with our suggestions, recommendations this week. So let's get to it. Quarterback, my FanDuel player is definitely Joe Burrow. I like him at 8,000. That Marshall Lattimore injury really helps there. The Bengals going to see some favorable coverage here against the Saints. So Joe Burrow, I think, lights it up here. And this could be a sneaky high-scoring game. The Saints can put up some numbers too. So Joe Burrow has some resistance potentially from New Orleans, so 8,000, I like that price. Now, Geno Smith, if we go to DraftKings, we've liked Geno Smith quite a bit as a Cardinals matchup. Now, he could have a big game as well here. Seahawks should be in a shootout with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray this week, so some resistance, so playing a shaky defense, not great on the outside. You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett there, the tight end. Will Dissly could also do some damage here, so some good weapons to maybe put up 303 here for Geno Smith. There, Joe Burrow can also do the same. Burrow a little bit safer, less volatile this week in the friendly confines of the Superdome here, going back to LSU. Geno Smith, however, in a comfortable spot as well at home against the Cardinals. So like those two quarterbacks quite a bit this week to be great return on investments there in FanDuel cash games and DraftKings tournaments respectively. Ramondre Stevenson, a guy that you just have to plug in here and go for it. He's a guy 7,500 there in FanDuel, 6,500 DraftKings. So love him there. You can also look at Ken Walker there on the same side of things. He's taken over the backfield with an injury. So Ramondre Stevenson gets that smash shot against the Browns. I think you'll see a lot of Ken Walker ownership. You'll see some Benjamin ownership as well this week. So those are 3 hot plays of the week based on having feature type roles out of nowhere. Stevenson because Harris is down, Walker because Penny's down, and Benjamin with James Conner and Darrell Williams not looking good for that same matchup, Seattle, Arizona. So if you want to diversify a little bit, make sure you get Ramondre Stevenson into your lineup with one of those backs from that game. And maybe it's Benjamin so you can afford Stevenson a little bit better. Another tournament play I like this week is Raheem Mostert, another big game last week. He looks really good. He's battling through another knee injury here, but fantastic. He's 5,700 there and 54. So good values there for those players. So Ken Walker there you can look at, and I think you can play him in any format. He's the guy I would go to because I think there's going to be a lot of Benjamin ownership there. So the pivot there is to use Walker and then either Stevenson or Mostert in your games this week. And Mostert coming off a big game last week against the Jets. Vikings run defense not all that special and exploitable this week. So really like that spot. So those are your quarterbacks and running back recommendations. At wide receiver, one guy stands out to me on both formats. It is Mike Evans. I think he has easy touchdown upside in this game, as well as the multiple TD potential and the big plays downfield. That's the kind of receiver that the Steelers defense struggles with quite a bit. We saw that with Gabe Davis. We saw that with Stephon Diggs. Evans is the number one outside, can beat that coverage pretty well. So love him. 7,700 FanDuel, 7,000 on DraftKings. So either cash games or tournaments, Evans is a good play this week. In cash games, I do like Christian Kirk. I think he'll be pretty involved here. He had a good productive game first time around against the Colts. This one's on the road, so no weather issues or as many defensive issues. So 7,000 there on FanDuel. And then Gabe Davis, only at 6,900. Another great matchup in terms of the coverages there that he'll see against the Chiefs. So like that. So Evans, Kirk, and Gabe Davis there in cash games on FanDuel. Now, for DraftKings, we have Evans at 7,000, but we want to give him some company here. Deebo Samuel, a lot. The Falcons road game here. He's back in the South. I know he didn't have the biggest game he wanted there last week against the Panthers. Still did find the end zone. But the speed of playing in Atlanta, I think, plays right in the hands of Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Jeff Wilson Jr. So love that. Deebo, I think, has a big all-around day at 7,600 there. And the other guy that I'm putting in as a tournament play is DJ Moore. Again, 5,100, very cheap on DraftKings. I think he can get it done with PJ Walker to at least to give you that 3K return on that investment, 15.3 points. I think you'll get that at least for DJ Moore this week. Tight end, there's only one choice for me. It's Zach Ertz. I am tempted by Will Dissly, but there's also Colby Parkinson and Noah Fant that could cut into that a little bit. Well, Zach Ertz is the man at tight end. They're still figuring out Max Williams, the rookie, Trey McBride. So Ertz is locked in. It's the last game without DeAndre Hopkins here with Kyler Murray. So 6,000 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DraftKings for one Zach Ertz. And defensively, we're going to ride the hot hand and the cheap price here. The Patriots, 4,200, 2,900. There's respectively on FanDuel, DraftKings. Now, Patriots know Jacoby Brissett. I think you'll get good scheming there from Bill Belichick here. So I know this offensive line, the running game is tough here, and that could thwart a defense for putting up points. But keep in mind, the Lions' running game was pretty special with a good offensive line. That didn't work out at all in that 29-0 shutout. So again, I love that price for the Patriots. Keep riding the hot hand with Bill Belichick as they're starting to make big plays as well to shut down the opposition. So 4,200, 2,900 there for the Patriots. All right, there you have. Those are our looks at the players and defense that you want to target there in FanDuel cash games and DraftKings tournaments. We'll get into our 5 prize picks of the week to close the show and this week of Lockdown Fantasy Football. We'll do that in our final segment. It's a very exciting time of year to get in on all the action. We have the sports equinox coming. That means that we'll have NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB all going at the same time. Postseason, of course, for MLB. NFL Thursday night games, and NBA and NHL regular season. So a lot of good action to get in on here, there. And our folks at BetOnline are going to take care of you there. BetOnline.net is your number one source for your football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles, analysis on every game you can find. In all those ways, BetOnline remains your unlimited and continued source for other sporting wagering information, from live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fast and easy way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, MMA, boxing, and, of course, golf. Head to betonline.net or use a mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is time to close the show here on Lockdown Fantasy Football with our prize picks of the week. Now, check it out with prize picks there. You can get in on the action there. And again, it's very easy. It's daily fantasy for you in the simplest way. Pick 2 to 5 players and they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. That's where you can play these. Let's look at the projections available that we want to target this week. We'll start with Geno Smith. We talked about him in DFS. 259.5 is the passing yardage number there. That is the projected total there for PrizePicks. So I'm going with Geno above that total because, again, Kyler Murray on the other side, the Cardinals offense is going to put up some points. they're going to have to throw quite a bit in Seattle. So I think Geno gets to 275, 280 in that range to safely give us that answer there, and maybe even push for 300 with the volume this week. Mike Evans is at 63 and a half receiving yards. I think that is an easy smash here again. Great matchup against that Steelers coverage. On top of the touchdowns, I think he'll have like 8 catches for like 125. I think that's what you're going to get from Mike Evans. So I think he'll almost double this number at 63.5. Zach Wilson, this one is sneaky. We're not going for the passing yardage. We're going for the rushing yardage. The Packers have allowed some pretty good rushing yardage to quarterbacks here that are mobile. So Justin Fields went past his number. So did Daniel Jones last week. 10.5 rushing yards for Zach Wilson. Things are going to break down. He's going to run a little bit. I think he gets about 3 attempts, gets 15 yards or so or more. So like that with Zach Wilson, that's a sneaky bet there on the rushing side. Now, a couple more rushing totals I really like. 49.5 for Cam Akers. They're going to get him involved. It's a Cam Akers game. They need to work on the running game. Their offensive line's beat up, struggling in pass protection. I think the Rams are going to try to get well with a lot of Akers in the running game. So 49.5, love that number. Again, it's low enough where we manage it. Getting to 50 yards for a player like that is much easier than getting 80 or 90 yards for a little bit of a hammer at running back. So keep that in mind. And Joe Mixon number is also pretty low, 60.5. The Saints' run defense has not been all that great of late. They let Rashad Penny and Ken Walker go off last week. So there is some vulnerability there. Christian McCaffrey had a pretty good game against them 2 weeks ago. So Joe Mixon should rebound 60.5 rushing yards. I think he gets about 75 or 80 in this game easily. So the picks are Geno Smith. Yeah, definitely keep it up here with the volume against Kyle Murray, 259.5. Good number there that we want to exploit. Mike Evans overdue for some big plays, stretching it downfield. He can do that against the Steelers, 63.5. I think there's a chance, much like Gabe Davis, he can hit on that on one play. It would not surprise me at all for Tom Brady. And Zach Wilson, mobile enough there. The Packers are a little bit vulnerable there to running quarterbacks. So 10.5 rushing yards, more than that for Zach Wilson. Akers, 49.5, and Joe Mixon, 60.5 there for their rushing yard totals this week. So those are my 5 PrizePicks picks of the week here to close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football and the week of shows. As we go through our progressive here, we start with our reactions there on Monday. We get into our waiver wire pickup Tuesday. Then we do our breakdown matchup Wednesday, matchup Thursday, where we do the start set advice rankings for quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, tight end, and defense. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first one today. Now, don't forget, our next episode will be the reaction to Week 6. On Monday, we'll play a little Panic or Patience. We'll play Are You For Real? And learn about the performances that blew our minds away there in Week 6, Sunday and Monday. Now, interesting game we had there between the Commanders and Bears. Hopefully we'll get a lot better results, but good to see Darnell Mooney get going and Brian Robinson there. So hopefully those guys got you off to a good start in fantasy football, and maybe played Justin Fields, and he had a decent streaming day with the running as well. So the interesting matchups for sure that happened in that game, and we should see a little bit more from that Bears and Commanders offense going forward. Mini bye, perfect timing for both teams here. So again, we'll have a reaction to all the other games there on Monday on our first week show of next week. Now make your second listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great weekend. Good luck in all your fantasy contests, whether they be seasonal or DFS. And we'll catch you hopefully victorious on the other side on Monday.